Has anyone got any questions for Ben?
I was about to tell us how to get in touch.
Oh, you're about to tell them how to get in touch?
My email address is benl@mixcloud.com, but ben@mixcloud.com also goes into my email inbox. Or @mixcloud on Twitter, or @benlwrnc on Twitter as well. But email me is best.
Brilliant. Ben, thanks again. Okay, now time to switch again over to Evan from Decibel over on the other stage. Just to say, then we've got Kim de Ruyter from Noise Inc. After that, we're going to take somewhat of a break, take time to look at the installations. There's some amazing installations and some fun stuff to play with down on level 2. That's down to level 2 and walk to the end of level 2, rooms 208, 209. Have some fun, grab some refreshments, and then we're due to start back here around 3 o'clock. But let's go over to Evan from Decibel first. Evan, are you good to go?
Yeah, I think so.
Superb.
Oh, and the microphone works, that's even better.
Yeah, brilliant.
Okay, yeah, hi, I'm Evan. Our company is called Decibel, and what we do is we supply music data to the music industry. The whole thing started, actually, this is a very personal project. You know, at the beginning, started working with my own music, you know, to bring it over to MP3. So, you know, I've got a lot of vinyl, I've got a lot of CDs, and, you know, my idea of a good time is that somebody comes over to the house and I say, oh, well, you know, this record, and I'm up on a chair looking for something, you know, as a continuation. So, you know, I had a lot of time at one point and started digitizing my collection and found that the whole experience wasn't really all that well thought out. So, you know, the MP3 is very good, the MP3 is very convenient, but they forgot a lot of things, translating the experience into a digital format. And one of the big things was the sleeve notes, because if you're really into music, the context of the music is just as important as the music that you're listening to. You know where it came from, you know who's playing, you know what's behind it, where it was recorded, all of these things. And, you know, the first reaction was just to make an MP3 sound file. You have the artist, you have the album title, the track title, and that's really about it. And, you know, it was a worse experience. So, you know, the first thought was to start making some software that stores all of this data and brings back that experience that people have of, you know, opening the booklet, taking a look at it, and somehow making that part of the product. And, you know, there were a lot of people in the music industry who were complaining that, you know, people were, you know, pirating files. Well, you know, it turns out that the files really weren't all that helpful. They weren't a product. And so, you know, anyway, Decibel was the effort to integrate digital information into digital music and, you know, start again with another product. So, you know, it's funny, like, you know, at the beginning, for instance, Rovi, they had the All Music Guide, and they evolved from a magazine, you know, like one of those big, actually a big coffee table book. And, you know, their idea was to put it on a website so that you could click and go back and forth and things. So, you know, that was their innovation. But again, you know, they were born in the, you know, the analog age. And there's only so far that you go. And it was kind of an immigrant sort of product, because, you know, if you're an immigrant, you tend to speak with a foreign accent of, you know, where you've been before. And, you know, Grace Note, the same kind of thing. So this was, you know, the idea of providing all the information to people that they needed to make a completely digital product. So, you know, we say it's, you know, the first sort of music product of the, you know, that's completely digital in its origin. So anyway, this is one of the programs that we did. We have an API. People can build their own programs. Again, there's a recognition that people are still feeling their way, and we need a lot of software to help. And, you know, we don't know exactly what it is. You know, we have some ideas that players and maybe, you know, digital radio, you can actually tell who you're listening to. You may still want to recognize CDs, but we provide all of these facilities for people. So this is sort of the best that I can do for a program, and it was written with the Decibel API, and this is just I can't see my mouse, okay. So for instance here, you have the tracks, and what do you know? These are all the people who play on the track. This is an MP3 file. These are MP3 tags. You could just as easily use these things to search. One of the things about Decibel also is, it turns out once you have all this information inside a database, it's actually better than the original. I mean, what we were thinking of was replacing the sleeve notes. It turns out that the sleeve notes are all in different CDs. So you have to read all of these things, and they don't necessarily agree with each other. If they're all in a database together, you have links between all the different pieces of information, and you can go from one thing to another, to another, to another. So actually, it turned out that this product was better than the original that it purported to replace, which was kind of nice to find out. Okay, so for instance, I have a little browser. I didn't leave anything to chance because, things usually go wrong during these demos. But I typed in Thelonious Monk, and all of a sudden, up comes a biography with all of the things he's performed on that we have in the database, all of the things that he's written, all of the albums that he's made, and it turns out also all of the people that he's played with. So you can click on one of these people and then sort of digress and go on to that person. And you can look inside the tracks as well. So, okay, this has to fail in one way or another. I would be surprised if it didn't. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, too ambitious. But the idea is that you can go from thing to thing to thing to thing. And it's a very, very natural way of listening to music. And we do, for instance, if you push in the CD, we do CD recognition. If you're going to keep all that type of information, you might as well get all of it. So, we do the CD recognition, we do, links from people, we have the barcodes, we have just about everything you might need. And then the other thing, which was quite interesting, okay, so much for the software. The other thing that was quite interesting was, the idea that people have different names when they perform. So, we have all of the aliases for all of the musicians, all of the names that they use. Also, different languages, because, for instance, the Japanese market, people are very, very interested in music, and they do their research really well. So, at the flip of a switch, we can change languages and present the same music in other languages. We also do classical music. Generally, software is geared for popular music. So when you hit something, let's say a sonata, for instance, in 3 movements, your usual internet service thinks that it's 3 different songs, as opposed to one piece spread over 3 tracks. So, these are the kinds of things that, we really thought about it and said, we want a product that works with not only popular music, but with world music, with jazz, with classical music. And, there you have it. So, rather than dwell on this software that's just thrown and wobbly, maybe, some people have questions. Yeah.
With a microphone.
It's not really a question. I just love the idea of digressive navigation and what that opens up for music, and really taking music seriously. I think it's just great.
Yeah,
because there's lots of metadata you can put on files. Everyone's on about metadata at the moment, and there's lots of money in metadata at the moment. And it's just actually someone
You're
seeing
kidding.
it doing something really interesting. Yeah, TSP, Technical Use Transport, or all over metadata.
I'm teasing.
Oh, sorry.
No. But well, yeah, you know, there are different ways of finding your music. So, for instance, you know, Amazon, when they set up the first time, they said, okay, you know, we have to sell people more music. We don't have this type of information because this is a major project. This is, you know, a 5 to 10 year project. So what can we do now where we have the information? And it turned out that what they had was what the last people bought and who your friends are. And that was very, very clever, but also they kind of slide out of the problem. And okay, you know, a plug again for Decibel, but you know, we store all this different information where you can digress. So for instance, you know, the studio, we have the geographic information. So you can say, well, oh, I'm in front of the Albert Hall. Do you think that anybody has played something here? And then you can go from there. So you can go from anywhere to anywhere else, depending on what you're thinking. Because, you know, I should say, you know, part of my career as an IT guy, I wrote investigation software. I was a spook. And the thing was that you would never know what people wanted to know until they wanted to know it. Or if they did, you know, sometimes they wouldn't even tell you. You know, it's one of those things like, you know, if I tell you why I'm looking, I have to kill you. So what we did was we set up these very, very flexible systems that would allow people to do things very ad hoc at the last minute and come up with very interesting results. So, you know, this is sort of an incarnation. This is, you know, this is for the powers of good.
Does anyone want to ask another question or add to that debate? One moment, let me come with the microphone. And not point it at the speakers.
Hi, so you've got a hugely rich data source that you've amassed, I guess, over several years.
Yes.
How do you manage to get so many albums on there? I mean, did you start typing these things in by hand, or have you some other way of getting it into your API system?
Yeah, that's great. You know, the answer is all of the above. We have programs where you can type. This program that just fell over is a two-way program. So you can type in your MP3 tags yourself and they go into the database. We also get public data sources and clean them up. So, you know, you get things, you know, we work with Discogs and Music Brains. You know, we get a lot of data from them. We get a lot of data from, well, you know, just as many sources as we can find. So, you know, for instance, we have some automatic translation of Western names into Japanese. We went to a Japanese tattoo site to be able to do that because, you know, we figured the information was good and nobody wants a misspelled tattoo. So, you know, we decided that we were going to trust these people. In it went and interacting with all of the other data. So it's really, you know, it doesn't really matter where you get the data as long as it's good. So we have a lot of software that cleans up the data. We have a lot of things that just links it together and makes it, you know, just one set of things. So
using a unique identifier for each object.
yes.
Because, I mean, it seems to me you've gone beyond what Discogs offer. Discogs was good, but it wouldn't tell you the instrumentalist, wouldn't tell you things like the engineer, or wouldn't always do things like that.
They do their best.
Yeah, they do an all right job.
Yeah.
I mean, they're the best I think I'd seen prior to yourself.
Yeah, well, you know, I mean, the difference between a crowdsourced application and a company application is the company can apply a bit of discipline to all of the data. If it's crowdsourced, people generally tend to do what they want because, you know, they want to share their point of view with people. So a lot of times, you know, on Discogs or Music Brains, you have somebody who's curating a set of albums and they're all in that one person style. And then somebody curates, another person curates and it's in another style. And, you know, you get any two people in the room and, like, you know, for instance, the question of musical genre, they disagree, you know, even if they're best of friends. So, you know, what we do is we have a lot of different genres that we recognize we emit only a few. If you disagree with us, it's okay, because eventually you're going to get into the music and the details of the music. So it really doesn't matter, it's just something that pulls you in. So, that's how we do it. We try and comb everything out and just make it nice.
Any other questions? Anyone want to add anything new to the debate at this point? Okay, well now I think what we're going to do is we're going to take a break. So go and explore the installations on levels 2 and 3 here.
Okay, I'll just say